You're listening to the Weekend Sport Podcast with Jason Pine from News Talk ZB.
Let's bring in our Australian correspondent, Adam Peacock. Good to chat as always. Adam, big story this week around the AFL, admitting that players who have been found to have illicit drugs in their system via internal testing by their clubs have been pulled from games to avoid detection of those illicit substances on game day. What's the background here?
This is just an amazing story. So they've got an illicit drugs policy, which means that you've got 3 strikes and then you're out, essentially. And when we say illicit, we mean, in inverted commas, recreational, like cocaine, marijuana, other things that people stuff around with, not necessarily, your hard and fast nandrolone to kind of improve your performance type thing, but they're still listed as illicit, and there's also performance-enhancing elements to some of them. But, so you can have 3 strikes before you're fully banned, but there's a process along the way, and it's very much cloak and dagger stuff. It's kept secret, but to this extent, no one knew that it was kept secret. Like, coaches apparently don't even know, although I'm scratching my head to see how that's functional. But, the only people inside clubs that know are the doctor and the player. And then the player, and then it all blew up the other night when a politician got up in front of Parliament, used parliamentary privilege to say this is going on, and players are being told to fake injuries to say that you can't play this weekend because you've actually got a strike and you've got some drugs in your system. So that's the crux of it all, that people in the wider AFL supporting community are being hoodwinked into believing one thing when actually another thing is happening. And people don't like liars, I found, Piney. So, it's all blown up.
So basically, a player goes to his team doctor, returns a positive test, and so then the doctor says to him, mate, pretend you've got a hamstring. Yeah,
or thinks that, after a game they've gone out and done a few things, and they've come in and said, oh, mate, I reckon I still got this in my system. If I do get tested after a game or after training, I'm going to get done. So the doctor then goes, okay, that's a strike against your name. However, you can't play this weekend, so you don't get a ban. Because if you test positive in a game, you get a ban.
Right.
So it's a convoluted process, but it's like down in Melbourne, it's very, I would say, insular in the way that they think. Like, for instance, this weekend, Dustin Martin, who's got a Kiwi connection, obviously, with his late father, he's pulled out of a game for Richmond with calf soreness. Now, everyone this week believes that, Dustin Martin, is it really calf soreness,
yes,
if you know what I mean? So
yes.
It brings the whole thing into question now about anyone who withdraws late from a game. So it's had a counterintuitive effect after the fact, because now people know about this policy, and it's like, well, why should we believe he's actually an out with a calf? So it's blown up in their face a little bit in that regard, I think.
Wow, interesting story. Really interesting story. Let's stay with that shape ball and move to the NRL. Penrith on target for a 4th straight title, something not achieved since the great St George sides of the 50s and 60s. How much better are the Panthers than everybody else at the moment?
At the moment they're going good, and there's no doubt that they're the best in the comp, and they're the ones to catch. The other night, I'd say the Roosters were feeling pretty good about life when they rocked up to the ground. They'd smashed their rivals the week before South. Nathan Cleary wasn't playing. James Fisher-Harris, the Golden Boot winner, best player in rugby league for the year before internationally, wasn't playing. So they've rocked up with good reason, thinking this is the time to get them. And then Penrith just went into their systems, and Isaiah Yeo was enormous for them, and they're just so hard to beat at the moment. So everyone else is playing catch-up. That's a fact. Didn't realise by how much, given the fact that they had those outs, and then they dusted the Roosters on their own patch as well. So, they're an incredible story, Penrith, about how they've formed this team, and they're just a formidable unit. That's not to say they're unbreakable. Of course they're unbreakable. Of course they're breakable, but it's just at the moment it seems that it's harder to find those cracks.
Finally today, to the A-Leagues, they had a tricky situation to negotiate this week. Production partners Global Advance went into administration. There was doubt whether this weekend's matches could be broadcast at all. How did this play out?
Yeah, it was all hands on deck. I think everyone was, the old handycams, they might have had to dust those off and get onto the hill at some places and shoot some games. But thankfully, it's all panned out okay. A big facilities provider. These are the facilities providers. So you watch a game, I don't know how it is over there in New Zealand, presuming it's the same, but over here, like a Channel 7, a Channel 9, a Channel 10, they don't actually provide the cameras as such. facilities provider, which was Global Advance for the A-Leagues, provides that. They went bust, gates were locked. Someone had to come in at the last minute. They did a deal with the global company NEP, who have great success in producing and putting together a TV coverage for sport. They stepped up. So thankfully, crisis averted. Commentators like your good self, your dulcet tones can be heard this weekend, and we can get on and watch some football.
Indeed. Yeah, no, NEP provide all the gear over here as well. So, know their work well, and good to have them stepping in the 11th hour to avoid a blackout, if that's what we can call it. Always good to chat sport with you, Adam. Thanks indeed. Happy Easter. We'll see you next week.
You too, Piney. Have a good one, mate.
You have a good one too. Adam Peacock from across the Tasman, this time every Saturday.
For more from Weekend Sport with Jason Pine, listen live to News Talk ZB weekends from midday or follow the podcast on iHeartRadio.